This is the Comedy Kiosk, podcast by Monday and Munoz. Please welcome Monday and Munoz.
Hello and welcome to the Comedy Kiosk, a podcast on which we discuss news, opinions, and ideas about comedy. My name is Igor Monday, and with me,
David Munoz.
And today we have decided to talk about different side of comedy and about a specific thing, which is perverts, allegedly. So
that's very important. Allegedly.
That's very important. Yes, we will put it in the title, in the description, and every time we say something in this episode, we will follow it. Let's put like an umbrella, allegedly, on everything that we're talking about today, because we don't want to, get sued by anyone, and we definitely don't want to imply that someone is guilty of something that the court didn't find them guilty of. But we will discuss the uglier side of comedy and the cases where a person that is, supposed to make you laugh, make your day brighter, that you kind of see always as a funny, positive, kind of, lighthearted character, can also be ugly, dark, dangerous, pervy, etc. somewhere, behind the scene. So recently we had such a case, right? And we had a very famous comedy writer, voice actor, director, producer, whatever, fired from a super popular animated cartoon series on Adult Swim. I think everyone knows who I'm talking about, but allegedly it was allegedly the co-creator of Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland.
Yeah, because we're not saying he was the creator, or he might be a co-creator. We're not saying that. He's allegedly a co-creator.
Allegedly the co-creator of Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's step on anyone's toes. Yes, but
exactly.
I thought it was Dick and Sporty, but okay, fair enough. Allegedly now
Dick and Shorty.
Names. Dick and Shorty.
Yeah, that's probably what he called people allegedly in the writing room and the backstage of Rick and Morty. But yeah, I've heard of the basically the outcome. No. I've heard of the outcome of this whole scandal, and that he was his contract was terminated. Yeah, that's the word. His contract was terminated by Adult Swim, and he won't be featured in any future episodes of Rick and Morty, which are still commissioned and kind of still being produced. But I'm not so familiar with what led to that. Like, do you know the story?
Okay, so basically, from what I understand, back in 2020 or something like that, with a woman that he was then seeing at the time, it had something to do with some physical assault, possibly. Allegedly, yeah. And there was that, and there was something else, something to do with messages, him messaging people, DMing, things like that, and allegedly, some of those people may have allegedly been on the young side, one might say. So there's all these sort of things going on. And the other interesting thing is, everyone's talking about Rick and Morty, because he does the voice of said Rick and said Morty, allegedly. And
allegedly.
But the thing is, people are saying, well, he doesn't really write that much. Like, he's only contributed, apparently, something like 5 episodes. So, really, it's Dan Harmon who does all the kind of the grunt work for that show, right? Which people are saying, well, at the end of the day, it's not going to be that hard to replace him, really. You just need a voice actor who can kind of imitate him, which that's kind of the whole point of voice acting. There's a lot of them who can imitate each other's styles and things. Or they can even find a loophole in the storytelling because it's a multiversal show, and they can bounce around, and all of a sudden his voice can just change, and whoop-de-doo. That can be done for both of them, for both those characters. But what's interesting is I actually watch, my wife and I are actually fans, and we quite enjoy watching Solar Opposites. And Solar Opposites, he has a lot more influence on. He's definitely one of the producers of the show. I believe he's one of the main writers or something. And of course he does the voices of the main characters there. So, of at least the main character. So this is going to be, well, yeah, that show is actually the one that's probably going to be affected the most. They might just cancel that show outright. So that one is completely gone. Now,
Yeah, that one is on Amazon Prime or something, I believe. But Yeah, it's. I mean, that one. I've seen it as well. I think 2 seasons out of 3 that are already out or something like this. But I think that one, it's kind of a side project of his as well. And if it gets, canceled or whatever, it's not going to be such a big deal as Rick and Morty, because Rick and Morty is already like a cult classic,
Phenomenon.
let's say, and phenomenon, and people really, really enjoy it and know it all around the world, and it's a huge thing. But it's also such a concept that I was just talking to a friend the other day, and they could easily do that. Like every episode they have different voices, and they can be like, it's a interdimensional translator, whatever. And every time we talk to a different race or dimension or something, our voices sound different, and they could have basically kind of guest stars on rotation. So like 1 week it could be, I don't know, someone like Brad Pitt voicing Morty and Steve Carell voicing Rick. Next week it could be Tina Fey and Andy Samberg. I don't know, like whatever. And they could just easily explain it as, it's this little thing that modifies our voice. That's it. That's
Yeah, exactly. Until eventually they settle on a set voice, like set actors, and that becomes the new standard or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. They can chase it around. And like I said, though, I'm sure there's plenty of voice actors and even fans who are able to imitate that voice pretty much pitch perfect. I mean, that is possible. So they could just find someone who's just perfect at doing the Rick voice and doing the Morty voice. Whoop-de-do, no big deal. Now, the other thing is, though, for me, it was also the main thing was the interesting reaction, because when it was all starting up and it was being released and all that sort of stuff, like that news was coming out. It's interesting to see. I think Twitter, seeing the reaction of some people to the news, and this is where the allegedly thing comes in quite actually a bit, because I was this information came out what he did, and some people automatically were like, well, the show was shit anyway, it's no surprise, blah blah blah. Some people were saying that. Others were, I remember one particular person who, I just saw the Twitter feed, it was like, if you're here, because they made some sort of Rick and Morty, like some Justin Roiland sort of a statement about, that should be cancelled. It's like, and if anyone here even tries to defend him, like, you can just get right off my Twitter feed or whatever, because he's an abusive prick and blah, blah, blah. And I just felt like for a second there, I'm like, well, the word allegedly is the thing, though. I mean, we don't know the full story yet, and it does sound bad, don't get me wrong, but they fired him. What you said at the beginning, they got rid of his contract, they completely cancelled him. That was it. Like they fired him, they cancelled the contract and whatever. And I get it, but the part for me was I thought it was a little bit like, but we still haven't settled on exactly 100% what has happened. I thought, wouldn't it have been better off to suspend him without pay, which is in effect the same thing, but to kind of say, look, until this comes to a light, until further evidence comes out, we're just gonna, you're suspended without pay. But
I think it's the kind of thing that we talked about on some previous episodes. This, let's say, PC culture and the power of media and this wokeness and the pressure of, because I mean, even in Constitution and in law, it's innocent until proven guilty. It's not guilty as soon as you are basically allegedly accused of a crime or accused of an alleged crime. So, but when it comes to big companies, corporations, where there is, now this huge pressure of this kind of Me Too, PC culture, wokeness and everything, they just don't want to risk it. And then it happens and I mean, this is very, very different. The allegations towards, let's say, James Gunn or Kevin Hart and stuff about some tweets from 20 years ago, where there was some kind of quote unquote homophobic joke, which might have not even been homophobic. It was something like, if my son was gay, I would something, Kevin Hart, I think, had that tweet, and then he was canceled for hosting Oscars, and James Gunn had something as well, then he was fired from Disney and Marvel and everything. But then when allegations sat down and they got basically back on their feet and rehired and everything, but I'm not comparing a tweet from 20 years ago with domestic violence and physical abuse or whatever, but it's still, yes, alleged accusations, and but of course companies just don't want to associate themselves with anything that could potentially ruin their brand image, sales, marketing.
And I actually agree with that. I'm like, yeah, you don't want that to affect, because at the end of the day, it comes down to money. That's why James Gunn, even for a tweet, got fired, because they were worried about. But that's my point. Is all they're showing is that companies are just showing themselves to be knee-jerk reacting, kind of not willing to back up your artist, or at least wait until to find out the full story. They're just knee-jerk reacting to everything, and it's like, no, you should be setting the example that says we will not condemn someone straight away, but we will take it seriously. We are going to suspend that person without pay. It's in the contract, like, maybe even like when you're hired from now on, if something like this pops up, your work will be suspended without pay until it gets resolved. And then if it turns out you were innocent, we'll back pay you. But on the other hand, we still have the option to cancel, because maybe it's like, well, you're just not worth having your contract renewed at this point. But the whole point is that I just find, like, I think, yeah, at the end of the day, they're going to have to fire him anyway. But it's just like, you don't fire someone just on the allegation straight off the bat. Suspend without pay. And then when it becomes formalized, then it says, well, see, we did take a measured approach. We did think about it. We did the right thing. We did not allow them to continue. They did not prosper anymore, like financially, from this situation. But now that it has come out, now that we are aware of the full details, we are going to completely, now we're, officially terminating his contract, because the alleged has become the real, all right? Or the real
but
situation.
I mean, it's now become because this is only the latest in the line and series of cases where, we had the Bill Cosby situation where allegedly he roofied people's drinks and women's drinks, and then had their way with them and stuff like this. But then at the end of the whole kind of process and in court and whatever, he was found not guilty, as I know. So
I think the case was acquitted on a technicality or something like that, wasn't it? Like they found that.
This I'm not sure, but I know that in the end he was released. So basically, but did it happen or not? I don't know. Probably yes, allegedly. Mm-hmm. But, if it didn't, on an off chance it didn't, he also lost his whole kind of name, reputation, trust, basically career and everything. Okay, like he retired already from any kind of active involvement in TV or in whatever. But, it happened to Louis C.K., for example, where he was also canceled due to kind of indecent actually, I think his charge was kind of using the position of power, which is also a bit ridiculous. Comedian having a position of power over audience. So basically,
but it wasn't audience; it was fellow comedians.
Oh, was it?
He'd done it to fellow comedians, like two female comedians, and pretty much, can I masturbate in front of you? And of course, they're in front of their hero. He's in that position of, the great Louis C.K. They felt a little bit like they couldn't say no. They felt a little bit under pressure, sort of stuff. So like, okay. Apparently, this is allegedly what happened.
Allegedly.
Something along those lines.
I don't condone any of that, and it just sounds pervy, allegedly. But, it's still... If the door wasn't locked, if he didn't physically force them, tie them down, hold them, beat them, anything, but he said, can I do it in front of you? And they said, okay, you can. Then, you made a bad decision in that moment, position of power
but
or not.
But that was the whole point. Through the position of power, they felt they couldn't say no, or they felt sort of trapped in that. Then that's the point that's being made.
I see, but we're talking about if it was minors or something, like in some cases with, I don't know, allegedly R. Kelly, allegedly Kevin Spacey, whatever. If it's someone who cannot make their
R. Kelly
own
just
decision.
got convicted. R. Kelly just got convicted.
Okay, we
allegedly.
We don't have to say allegedly. Woo!
Apparently, woohoo! Yay! Apparently. We got one.
We got one. We got a perv.
Fishing line, hook, line, and sinker, baby. Good job, we got one. Finally.
Certified perv. You've heard it here first, people. The Comedy Kiosk. We'll get them all eventually. But
get them all.
But yeah, so I get it why it's not okay. I don't approve of it, but it's also, I wouldn't say it's not a crime. I would say it's
until it is.
Until it is, but it is if you force someone, not if you if someone is looking up to you and they want to be there, but later they say, oh my God, what was I doing? You know, but then there are cases where there is this British comic, I think his name is Sean Walsh, if I remember now correctly. So basically his big thing was that he was married and he was performing on Strictly Come Dancing, partnered up with a beautiful female dancer. And then he was caught on some party or whatever, like paparazzi caught them like making out. And she was also married. So basically his big crime was cheating on his wife. But like, you know, that's his personal thing. Who the fuck gives a fuck? You know, like it's his personal thing.
But that's paparazzi. That's the same thing that's always had with every celebrity. You know, Marilyn Monroe is allegedly having an affair with JFK. You know,
but he was actually canceled for that. So and his like agent and production company dropped him. His whole like all the shows and stuff got canceled, and it took like good 2-3 years for him to come back to performing live, to get some gigs on TV and stuff. Mostly through like kind of. But I mean. It's not okay to cheat on your wife, but who the fuck cares? You know, like it's his wife.
You could almost say the same thing about Bill Clinton. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, you know, he got a blowjob from an intern, and it was like
allegedly.
Wasn't that convicted? Anyway, okay, just in case, allegedly. And you know, and at the end of the day, you're like, what the hell? Like, it was. Especially those of us who aren't American who are watching that, we're just like, who gives a shit? How is this? And it's like, but he lied in front of Congress. And it's like, oh, okay, I gotta get that point. But at the same time,
Of course
you would. You're married. Like, what the hell? Like, you know, if he was a single guy, then he probably would have been like, oh, hells yeah, I did it. Cha-ching. But he was a married dude. Of course he's going to freaking lie because, you know, the wife is probably there in the room and he's like, no.
And he's married to Hillary, so... Woo. But, I mean, the thing is, like, with this kind of thing, okay, I think... I'm not sure. You're a bit older than me. I don't know. Was he actually sacked for that or something?
No, he was impeached.
Okay. Well, that's like Trump was impeached, like, 7 times? But... it's anyways, but you know, here at least this kind of moral or ethical kind of grounds apply because you are the leader of the kind of biggest, strongest, free country of the world, whatever. You're not
a blowjob.
Yeah, but
it's sex. Who cares? Who gives a shit?
I agree. Who cares? And it's none of
good on him.
It's nobody's business and whatever. If he wants to cheat on his wife, let the guy cheat on his wife. It's not good towards her, or it's not good behavior in general. But it's not a crime, and it's not something to get fired over or whatever. But I'm saying at least here, you know, like you kind of looking up. It's the leader of the free world, so to speak. And then you know, on the other hand, we have kind of part-time TV touring comic, you know, like what? But I mean, in some cases, I don't know about if we talk about CK, for example, he bounced back eventually as well. Like he, for a while, did a lot of like Eastern Europe and stuff because he couldn't get any gigs in the States and everything like this. Now I think it's getting a bit better as well. Like, because I mean, he did apologize. He did kind of confess 100%. He did, you know, like
but also he was making joke. I remember because I heard some of those. I heard snippets because someone's using it as an example on Twitter, of course, about how, like, you know, he had apologized, but had he really? Because like one of the jokes he was making on stage was apparently like, you know, he was mentioning the whole that he had asked for their permission. The other reason why I know that part of the story is because he was kind of saying, look, I asked for permission, but even if a girl says yes, don't do it. Don't show your dick. You know, that was part of his joke on stage. And he was basically saying, they gave me consent, but still don't do it. Like, you know, he was kind of making fun of the fact. And of course, some people will find that offensive. Like, how dare he? He knew he was in a position of authority and power, and those women felt like they were cornered and they weren't able to actually, you know, do that. But anyway, the point is that
this is, again, like, you know, it's, I think when, you know, there's this expression, you know, when there's a lot of smoke, there's fire. So I think, you know, in cases like this most recent one, that, you know, one person makes an accusation and then 20 or 30 or 50 more people come and kind of accuse the person of the same thing, and some have proof and some have, then it sounds more like yeah, that sounds like it probably happened. But
like the Cosby situation where you just
like that one
after, and you're like, holy crap. Yeah, and I get it.
Or the situation with, there was a situation with the Maroon 5 singer recently, Adam Levine, is that his name? Where he was like, he's married happily, allegedly, but he was also DMing like a bunch of chicks, like very, like pervy kind of sexting messages and stuff like this. So someone, kind of shared this publicly, and then like 50 more women shared this publicly as well, and so on, which is again not a crime to flirt with.
Yeah, because none of them were underage, were they?
No, it was just tasteless. It wasn't like he's not canceled or imprisoned. It was just tasteless. But But
that's just it. There's nothing to stop Maroon 5 for going on another concert tour if they wanted to, which is fine. But they might expect, for example, that yes, their sales might go down a bit. Like their ticket sales may not be as strong because some of their fans might be like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to give you money after what you've done. I just don't, not this tour. Maybe in 2 tours' time, I'll come back.
No, I mean, in cases like, I think it's absolutely justified to cut ties with someone who is accused of a crime, because even accused doesn't mean that a person did it. But you as a brand, of course, you're trying to send the right message and not associate yourself with.
Yes.
So, but a crime is very, because if I'm just thinking, like every day I'm thinking, God forbid one day I actually make it in comedy and become semi-famous or famous or something. Like if something comes up that I've said like 20 years ago as a joke in some chat, and it comes up and it ruins my whole career or podcast. Yeah. And it ruins everything that I've worked.
It's most likely the podcast to
achieve. But if it's most likely, yeah. But it's not the kind of thing, where I actually came up with this joke recently. This is the premiere of that joke because one person that I know recently changed their pronouns. So they used to be he, but now they are they. And I had to go back to every chat where I referred to them as he and edit it to they. So I don't get caught in 20 years, like misnaming them. So, it's kind of retrospectively, of course, and we talked about it in some episodes as well. You don't know you're in the wrong before someone points that out to you and before it, becomes obvious, etc. Which, again, I'm not condoning. I'm not saying that domestic violence was ever okay or roofing people's drinks was ever okay or anything like this,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I agree. And I've said it in previous episodes of this podcast where I've said it eventually comes down to money. Cancelling is not a new thing, actually. It's been from way back. It's basically if a company doesn't think you're going to be making them money anymore, they cancel your contracts, they fire you, or they just don't renew you. And I agree with that completely. Like, in the past, let's go back to the 1940s or 1950s. If a movie star made a racist remark, no one would have cared. They would have kept their contract because at the time, it was just part and parcel. People said stuff, right? But then later on in the 70s, if they said something, the company will be like, well, you know what? The mood of the public is changing. We don't accept that language anymore. We're not going to put you in any more films, at least for the next 5 years, sort of thing. And we'll see how people react to what you said. I get that. But that's just it. It's that measured response where you just go, right. So with Roiland, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of smoke at this point. I think it's pretty much, it's going to be like the Cosby situation or the D'Elia situation, the other one where, with the messages to underages and things like that. And yes, and that's what I'm saying. I think the first step should always be like a suspension. And then it's like the company will get together to kind of show that it's not a knee-jerk reaction, even if it's the right thing to do. I think they're more worried about the people's reaction and they want to see themselves as being definitive with their choices. Like, yes, we've gotten rid of him. We do not stand for this crap whatsoever. But then if you end up like with the gun situation, it does kind of backfire on you a bit and makes you look like a bit of a dick sometimes, I'm saying. So I think that there should be, it's the right thing. I think they ended up doing the right thing, but I think they did it a bit too quick. I think they could have taken 2 steps instead of jumping right across, personally. That's just my opinion on that point.
But I just wanted to also address the thing that, sometimes, because again, we see comics as, I mean, obviously to be a comedian, in many cases, not always, but you do need to be kind of, let's say, damaged or hurt by something, or have like a specific mindset, or have a specific, lifestyle or something like this. Be a little bit on the margins of society, be a little bit different, be a little bit like cuckoo or whatever, yeah, and also, but at the same time, kind of self-centered and egoistic, and like hungry for attention,
self-aware,
or power, self-aware. So all these things, of course, can sometimes basically snowball into some horrible things and actions, but it's sometimes so well hidden behind. I mean, Cosby, I watched that show as a kid a lot, and he was such a sweet dad, grandpa, the nicest and stuff. And when this scandal came out, it was just like, really, that guy, like, of all the people, but I can tell you firsthand,
I think a lot of people were devastated,
and that
literally
as well.
devastated by that news.
Yeah, and that as well. And I mean, and then, but it's really hard to see. I can tell you firsthand, without any kind of details or naming anyone, but I know a person that you would kind of never say that there is anything behind humor, let's say kindness, whatever behind this impression that you get from them, from the very moment and it's kind of absolute charisma, energy, big smile, everything, just like a great nice person. And then you hear stuff that they've done to other people that you're not aware of, and you're like, whoa, really? Like, I drank with that guy, I hung out with that guy, I don't know, like, shared a stage with that guy or whatever. Like, whoa, no way. And but especially when it's not just some rumors or gossip or something, people always talk, especially when you kind of hang out in closed and small circles and communities, like stand-up usually is in each like city or club or something, but when these things come from people that you actually understand that they have no reason to make stuff up or to lie about stuff, and they're like, oh my God, I would have never guessed in a million years that this person can behave in such a way. So, it's really, it is really tricky to see this, let's say, potential ugly side of a comedian, because on stage they are the butt of the joke. They are the jester and the clown and so you don't feel that they could do something ugly or dark or mean or violent or anything towards, like, offensive towards other people, but it does happen.
Do you think that maybe that's why it maybe hits a little bit harder? Because it's that whole, they are your jesters, they are your clowns, they are the light. They're the ones that make the world a little bit lighter, that bring humor to it, that when things suck, they're the ones that lift you up and make you feel good about yourself. They're the ones who make fun of themselves so that you can feel better. So you're like, oh, I'm not the only one that thinks that way, or, oh my God, that person's worse than I am, like, ha ha ha. But then to discover there's that kind of that darkness in it, there's a real darkness, not just a ha-ha darkness or a comedic darkness, but a serious one, and probably one that you did not see, that you did not expect. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit. I mean, it breaks your heart a little.
Absolutely, because, when you hear the news like, oh, Andrew Tate has been accused of human trafficking in Romania, and you're like, oh, really? That asshole? Sure, like
that's it. Really?
Like, yeah, wow, what a surprise. Or
one crime only. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
He's really gotten lazy.
Yeah, exactly. Or like Donald Trump
allegedly.
Whoa. Or, like Donald Trump has been accused of, I don't know, calling a woman a bitch or making fun of a handicapped person or whatever.
That's it?
Like, yeah, whatever, Tuesday.
He's gone soft.
So, it's kind of, when it's people that are some kind of sleazebags or whatever, and like especially politicians, especially these kind of like whatever, or if that someone is in trouble, like Charlie Sheen, when people found out about him allegedly beating up also like some kind of prostitute or something on cocaine or whatever it was, or like Mel Gibson allegedly like drunkenly punching someone, this and that, and you're like, yeah, sure, that happened probably, like it's no shock. But when it's some kind of sweet, nice, kind of happy-go-lucky comedian that's supposed to be, the kind of the smart one, the intelligent one, the funny one, the, better than most in terms of like, the one that brings you joy, not, takes the joy away. Yeah, I think it does hit different, and people then, kind of, wow, really? I would never suspect that allegedly they could do such alleged stuff, allegedly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I just think that we should just kind of, control our reaction a little bit to it, though. I think we're getting way too knee-jerk reaction with stuff. But hey, at the end, I do think, the right choices have been made in most parts, eventually. But it's like anything. I think it's also a growing term. Like, we learn to deal with this information, as you were saying before. It's becoming much more and more frequent, and either we're going to have to accept that, everyone's infallible fallible. Then, it's just going to keep happening. But now I would like to ask the main question here. What do you think is going to get you cancelled, Igor? What is it?
Oh, I knew you were gonna ask that, and not because we prepared this podcast in advance, because we didn't. I knew you were gonna ask that because that was my next question to you. Yeah, but I mean, it's very much, that's the thing. Like, I mean, if people heard some stuff I say to my friends or whatever, it's horrible. I admit it's absolutely horrible, but it's not something that is meant to be anything more than banter between friends, and it's not meant for any like public sphere or media, or it's not aimed towards anyone in particular or towards anyone in general, actually, because it's a joke. It's just there to say something stupid or funny, and if people saw what kind of memes I've shared around or anything, like, I'd be immediately canceled. And again, it's not because I have a single atom of hatred or anything in my body towards anyone in particular or any group of people or anything, but it's just, funny shit's funny. But, or even when it's not funny, maybe it's an attempt of being funny. So it comes out as offensive or something because it's just a bad joke that should have been funny, but it didn't land. So now it sounds offensive, things like this. Yeah. But I don't.
And that you find funny.
And that maybe I find funny, or at that moment I did, or I thought it is going to be funny once it came out, but it didn't. It wasn't. But I can't remember really a case where I intentionally, with kind of bad intent, like with something that was supposed to be hurtful or insulting or violent or aggressive or anything towards anyone that I've ever, like done or said. So even on this podcast, we joked about like, if something gets us canceled, it's going to be this podcast. But everything that I've said on this podcast is just, like what I think in that absolute second. It doesn't mean that also a week later, something cannot just open my eyes, change my mind, enlighten me.
Absolutely.
And I will know better starting then. It still doesn't take back what I said in that moment. But I whatever I've said on the podcast, on my stand-up, on whatever, like in DMs of my friends, some memes that I said, I can 100% assure you there was no bad intent or any kind of, actual
maleficence.
Yeah. Any kind of maleficence behind that whatsoever. So if someone does catch me on something, and I eventually get canceled, you misunderstood. That's what I'm trying to say. It's your fault. You misunderstood.
You forgot to finish that with Your Honor.
Allegedly.
Yeah. It sounded like something. It sounds like you're preparing for a court case already. That's your speech that you're already going to give in court. Your Honor at the very end. Just add that. You've got your little speech already down pat. Lovely. Lovely.
Yeah, it's my closing statement for the jury.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Me? Sex stuff. Totally. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's going to be that, some toys, electricity, probably some sort of animal, farm related, I'm guessing. Just some really weird shit. And the thing is, it won't be because I have any interest, or maybe even maybe some showers, golden or other color. But the thing is, it's not because it'll be, knowing me and my luck, I'll be at some party where this shit is happening in a back room, and I'd be the kind of person that while looking for the toilet would walk into the wrong room just as the camera that's been set up like flashes and takes a shot, and that'll be me in that situation. And it'll be me just going, well, fuck. I'm done.
Fuck me, David.
That's it.
I thought I knew you, but Jesus Christ, what kind of life are you leading? That it might, the thing you get canceled for is zoophilia with electricity involved. Like, I don't know. But on that note, maybe in one other episode we can go deeper into that. But on that note, thank you so much for listening. This was the Comedy Kiosk. Sign up for all of our social media. Follow us, comment, like us, and share us. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Igor Monday.
And I'm David Munoz.
Goodbye.
Ciao.